So let's dive into the whole scenario where India is defiantly choosing to keep buying Russian oil, and it really shakes up the conventional narratives about geopolitics.
Yep, it's a fascinating development. India's decision seems to, challenge a lot of expectations in international energy politics.
Exactly. It's like they're not backing down even with intense pressure from Western nations, especially with tariffs and all that, right?
Absolutely. They're essentially saying, hey, we'll do what's best for our energy security and economic interests. And that's a pretty bold stance.
Right. And when you look at it, it's a clear signal that India is prioritizing its own energy reliability over aligning with the more traditional Western pressure tactics.
Got it. But isn't there a risk, say, regarding long term diplomatic ties with, countries pushing sanctions against Russia?
That's the interesting part, isn't it? India's stance is almost like a calculated defiance. They're basically weighing the economic benefits of cheaper, reliable oil supplies from Russia versus the potential for diplomatic fallout with other major economies.
Yeah, and it almost seems like a strategic gamble. I mean, the global oil market is so intertwined that even a major player like India making this move could, ripple through energy pricing and alliances.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a game of chess. India's move here forces other nations to reevaluate their strategies, especially when you consider that the US, for example, has been all about penalties and tariffs lately.
Right, definitely. And that US stance is obviously influenced by their desire to isolate Russia economically. But India's narrative seems to be um, based on a different set of priorities.
Yeah, it's a sort of realpolitik view. If you think about it, energy independence is a massive factor for any economy. And when you have a country willing to trade with Russia, regardless of the political pressures, it definitely complicates things.
hmm But then, don't you think there's an inherent risk in continuing these oil deals with a sanctioned nation? I mean, could there be hidden costs, maybe in the form of sanctions later down the line?
Sure, that's a valid concern. I mean, it's like they're balancing on this knife edge. On one side, you get energy security and potential cost savings. On the other, there are geopolitical risks that could impact their long
Yep,
term
that's a tricky balance.
relationships.
And it's interesting because this isn't just about oil, it's about asserting economic independence in a world where superpowers try to dictate global trade norms.
Exactly. You know, it's like imagine you're building a fortress for your energy security. Every decision, even sourcing oil, becomes a statement of sovereignty and strategy.
True, though some critics might argue that by aligning with Russia, India risks alienating its other close allies in the West.
Well, yeah, there is a risk. But then again, India's economy is huge and complex. It can't just bend to external pressures if it means compromising its own growth and energy needs.
That's one way to look at it. I see your point, but isn't there a danger of setting a precedent where economic pragmatism overrides, say, human rights or other political considerations?
That's a fair critique. It's like, in the broader picture, every nation's decision has ripple effects. While India might be justifying its move on grounds of self interest and sovereign decision making, it definitely raises questions about the ethical dimensions of continuing trade with a state under sanctions.
Right, and that could, in the long run, affect global perceptions and even domestic policies in other nations that might look to India as a model.
Yep, and it really underscores the fact that geopolitics is never black and white. There's always this messy intersection of economic necessity, strategic autonomy, and political ideology.
Also, it makes you wonder about the future. If more countries start taking similar stances, could that lead to a fracturing of the global economic order?
Potentially, yeah. It's like a domino effect. Once a major player like India makes a decree that they're going to secure their own interests first, others might follow, and there'd be a whole new dynamic in international trade.
That's an intriguing perspective. And then there's the whole energy security argument. It's more urgent than ever with rising energy demands and the vulnerabilities we've seen in global supply chains.
Exactly. It's almost like countries around the world are waking up to the risks of relying too heavily on what was once considered a reliable supply chain. And India is sort of pioneering that wake up call by aligning itself with Russia despite the political pressure.
I can see how that makes sense from a purely strategic standpoint, but I wonder, doesn't that put India in a tight spot with nations that are actively trying to weaken Russia's economic ties?
It does, indeed. But if you look at it, the alternative, compromising their own energy needs, could be far more damaging in the long run. It's like, sometimes you go with the lesser of two evils when the stakes are so high.
Yeah, I get you. It's definitely a bold move. And it's hard not to admire that sort of strategic courage, even if it does invite criticism from some corners.
Right, and what's fascinating is that this move by India, as reported in that Breaking Points video, really encapsulates the modern clash between economic realism and political idealism. It's like a microcosm of our current global order.
Absolutely. And it adds this whole layer of complexity to what we typically think of as international trade in energy. It's not just about dollars and cents anymore.
Yep, we've got sanctions, international alliances, and even some aspects of domestic policy influencing these decisions. It's like a massive, intricate web where every decision interlinks with another.
Completely. And now that we've seen India take this defiant approach, I wonder if other emerging economies will follow suit or if they'll be more cautious given the global backlash.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It might go either way. Some might choose to take a similar risk for the sake of energy security, while others might opt, to avoid the geopolitical frictions.
Yeah, I can imagine a situation where if a few more countries start to follow India's lead, we could see a significant shift in global alliances and economic policies.
Definitely. And it also opens up a broader discussion about how energy politics today are deeply intertwined with geopolitical strategies. It's not just about oil, it's about asserting a kind of independence that, honestly, forces the hand of international diplomacy.
Right, exactly. I mean, it really flips the narrative. Instead of being a follower in the global order, India is setting its own agenda, which might just, force others to think twice before imposing their will.
And while it's a bold move, it certainly isn't without controversy. There are real concerns about long-term repercussions, not just economically, but also in terms of international credibility and alliances.
True, and that's where critics might say, hold on, you're risking more than you're gaining in the long run, especially if global opinion shifts against such moves.
I get that perspective, but, sometimes in global politics, you have to choose the option that best secures your own nation's interests, even if it means bucking the trend. It's a bit messy, but that's geopolitics for you.
Can't argue with that. So, looking ahead, it seems like India's decision to continue buying Russian oil could, act as a bellwether for how energy politics might evolve in this unpredictable global arena.
Exactly. It's a signal that the world is becoming increasingly multipolar when it comes to such decisions. You never know what moves will follow. It's like a high-stakes chess match on a geopolitical scale.
Yes, indeed. And it definitely adds a rich layer of complexity and excitement to the discourse on global trade and international relations.
Right, and that's what makes following these developments so interesting. Even with all the economic risks, the strategic play here is a reminder that in international politics, sometimes defiance is just another form of strategy.
Well said. It's a brave, calculated move, albeit one that will continually demand tough questions from both allies and critics.
Absolutely. And as these dynamics evolve, we'll see how this decision shapes not just India's future, but potentially the global energy landscape itself.
Truly, it's a game changer. I'm looking forward to seeing how all of this unfolds. Definitely a storyline to keep an eye on.
No doubt about that. It's a clear snapshot of the shifting sands of international policy in real time. And that's what makes our discussion today so gripping.
Absolutely. Dynamic, unpredictable, and, absolutely relevant. Thanks for the deep dive.